Carmela Abimbola was the kind of woman who made strangers stop mid-step. In her mid-50s, she radiated a timeless beauty that mocked the years, her smooth skin glowing like polished mahogany, her eyes warm and bright, with a wisdom that made her seem even more captivating. People often guessed she was in her early 30s, and she never felt the need to correct them. Her husband, Abdu Abimbola, AB to everyone, was equally magnetic. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a regal presence, Ab carried himself with the confidence of a man born into privilege. Though born and raised in America, his roots traced back to one of Africa's wealthiest and most influential tribes. He was a millionaire several times over, his fortune built on a combination of inherited wealth and sharp business instincts. They'd met years ago, in Africa, though not under romantic circumstances. Carmela had been there on a 2-week trip, eager to connect with the land and culture. AB had been there on business. Their first encounter was anything but charming. An argument sparked over a cultural misunderstanding, each of them stubborn in their perspective. They parted with polite smiles that felt more like truce flags. But fate is rarely satisfied with one meeting. Days before Carmela was set to fly back home, they bumped into each other again at a high-end art gallery. This time the conversation flowed differently, lighter, warmer, tinged with a mutual spark they couldn't ignore. They discovered they both lived in the U.S., barely an hour apart. Back in America, they became inseparable. When AB began speaking of marriage, Carmela's joy was tempered by one concern: African traditions of polygamy. She voiced her fear openly, and AB was quick to reassure her. "I am Americanized," he said with a tender smile. "You are my only love, Carmela. Always." 2 weddings followed, one a lavish American ceremony, the other a breathtaking traditional African celebration. Families mingled effortlessly, laughter and music binding them together. The early years were a dream. They traveled the world, Paris in the spring, Santorini in the summer, safaris in Kenya by autumn. AB had 3 grown children in college from a previous marriage, and Carmela had 1 daughter, a successful salon owner. They agreed children together weren't part of their plan, choosing instead to pour themselves into each other and their adventures. Then Jasmine arrived. She was Ab's new hire, a stunning young woman with skin like poured caramel, legs that went on for days, and a smile that could undo a man's resolve in seconds. Tall, elegant, and impeccably dressed, she seemed like she'd stepped out of a high-fashion campaign. Carmela noticed her, of course, but felt no fear. She trusted Ab completely. At least, she told herself she did. The late-night meetings began. The out-of-town business trips multiplied. His phone calls ran longer. Friends dropped quiet hints, and though Carmela's stomach sometimes twisted, she brushed it off. Their sex life was still passionate, their laughter genuine, or so she thought. Everything changed with the envelope. While Ab was out of town on business, the guard at the gate delivered an envelope to the door of their sprawling 15-bedroom mansion. No return address. Inside, a stack of photographs. Her heart pounded as she flipped through them. Ab and Jasmine at dinners, on balconies, in hotel rooms. Some shots were painfully explicit. Her hands shook so hard the pictures fluttered to the floor. The doorbell rang. James, her longtime friend and attorney, had arrived for an estate planning meeting. One look at Carmela's tear-streaked face, and he pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing, unable to form words. When she finally told him, James was calm but grim. He'd never trusted AB, though he'd kept his opinions to himself. James had always admired Carmela, not just for her beauty, but for her sharp mind. Years ago, he'd tried to date her, but she chose Ab, drawn to his wealth and the lifestyle he offered. Ab returned 2 days later from his trip. Carmela met him in the foyer, cold and composed, the envelope in her hand. "How was your trip?" she asked. He smiled easily, launching into details until she interrupted. "Oh, by the way, this came while you were gone." The smile faltered. He opened the envelope, scanned the contents, and his expression shifted from confusion to something like relief. "I didn't want you to find out this way," he said, "but I'm glad you know. Carmela, I never meant to hurt you, but I've fallen for Jasmine. I want a divorce." The air left her lungs. "She's half your age, AB. What are you thinking?" "You can't help who you love," he said. "She's my soulmate. I want her here in this house, and it wouldn't be fair for you to stay." Fury blazed in her chest. "This is my home. Maybe you can stay with your daughter until you find a place." His tone was almost casual. She hurled a vase at him. It struck his back and clattered to the marble floor without breaking. He glanced down at it and smirked. "You didn't expect that to break, did you? You know I only buy the finest." Defeated, Carmela packed a bag and decided she would stay at a hotel while she processed what was happening. 2 days later, at the Waldorf Astoria, her credit cards began to decline, one after another. Calls to the bank revealed the truth. AB had cut her off financially. The only card she had that didn't decline was a $5,000 bank card in her name. She would normally use for petty incidentals. The shock was suffocating. Carmela stood in the hotel lobby with a knot in her throat, the hum of polite conversation around her, feeling suddenly far away. For years, she'd been the woman who could swipe any card without glancing at the bill. Now she was the woman holding up the line. By the end of the week, she had checked out of the Waldorf, suitcases in tow, and without a driver for the first time in years, she drove herself to her daughter's modest 2-bedroom condo. Life without AB's wealth hit her hard. Suddenly, every decision was a calculation. She clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. She walked past boutique windows and turned her face away, unwilling to see the things she could no longer buy. The grocery store, once a place where she'd casually toss artisanal cheeses and imported chocolates into the cart, became a battlefield. She learned the price of milk. She compared brands. She put things back. Friends she'd dined with in Michelin-starred restaurants stopped calling as much. Maybe they didn't know what to say. Or maybe, Carmela thought bitterly, she just wasn't fun anymore without the Amex Black Card. Her car, technically in AB's name, was repossessed within a month. Humiliated, she began taking rides from her daughter or using rideshare apps, hoping no one she knew would see her standing on the curb. The worst moments were the nights she couldn't sleep. She'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying Ab's smirk when he told her Jasmine was his soulmate. Rage would rise in her chest like fire, but beneath it was fear. Fear of starting over in her 50s. Fear of being a burden. Fear of becoming invisible. Her pride kept her from calling James right away. She didn't want him, or anyone, to know how far she'd fallen. But when the power in her daughter's guest room flickered one afternoon because she'd forgotten to contribute her share of the bill, she realized she couldn't keep pretending she had it all together. Humbling herself, Carmela finally reached out to James. She asked to meet, telling herself it was only to get advice. When she saw him, the dam broke. She confessed it all, the empty bank account, the embarrassment, the quiet desperation. James listened without judgment, his eyes steady on hers. From that day forward, James became more than just her attorney. He became her shield, strategist, and quiet anchor. In their first meeting about the divorce, he didn't start with legal jargon. Instead, he slid a yellow legal pad across the table and asked, "Tell me everything. Not just the cheating. Tell me about your life with AB, your work, your money, the day-to-day." At first, Carmela hesitated. Talking about her financial dependence made her feel ashamed, but James wouldn't let her gloss over it. "If we don't get the full picture," he said, "we can't win, and winning is exactly what we're going to do." So she told him about the accounting firm she once owned, about closing it because AB insisted she didn't need to work, about the cars, the vacations, the house, all under his name, about the night she had to put groceries back because she couldn't pay. James's jaw tightened as he scribbled notes. "He took your independence so you'd have no power when he was done with you. That's not just cruel, it's strategic. And I'll make sure the judge sees that." In court, Ab walked in with the same confident swagger he had the day he told her Jasmine was moving in. Jasmine herself sat in the gallery, flawless in a designer dress, her eyes fixed forward as if the entire thing bored her. Carmela's hands trembled under the table until James leaned over and whispered, "You're going to win. Trust me." And then he went to work. Piece by piece, James dismantled Ab's image of control. He presented photos of AB and Jasmine, every one of them time-stamped during business trips. He produced financial records showing the calculated removal of Carmela's name from accounts and property. He introduced witness statements from friends who'd watched AB isolate her financially. Then came the kicker, evidence of Carmela's lost earning potential. James had tracked down old records from her accounting firm, proving it had the potential to earn millions when she shuttered it. "My client," James said, his voice sharp, "was not a dependent housewife. She was a thriving business owner who was persuaded to give up her livelihood in service to a man who promised to provide for her indefinitely, and then discarded her without warning, financial support, or dignity." AB's smirk faltered for the first time. By the end of the trial, the judge's ruling was a clean sweep. Carmela kept the mansion, secured millions in alimony and settlement payouts, and retained sole ownership of several valuable investment properties James discovered AB had tried to hide. AB and Jasmine were ordered to vacate the mansion within 30 days. Later that evening, Carmela met James to thank him for his work. She offered to pay his legal fees. He refused. When she pleaded with him, he revealed his own secret. He too was a millionaire, the heir to a fortune from his father's medical innovations. Carmela laughed in disbelief all this time. How did I not know this? I live a great life, but I'm not flashy. I don't throw my money around. I work every day because practicing law fulfills my passion. And I use the money earned to help others, he said simply. Carmela smiled as his words touched her heart. They continued talking about their passions until the wee hours of the morning. The sky was the color of polished steel the morning AB and Jasmine were scheduled to move out. Carmela stood in the foyer wearing a silk robe in the deepest shade of red, her hair perfectly styled, a mug of coffee cradled in her hand. The echo of footsteps and cardboard sliding across marble floors filled the house. Movers in navy uniforms passed her one by one, carrying boxes labeled in black marker, AB's office, Jasmine's clothes, miscellaneous, personal. Each trip out the door was a small victory. Jasmine appeared first, descending the grand staircase in leggings and an oversized hoodie. No makeup today, hair pulled into a messy bun. The gloss of her designer girl confidence had dulled. She glanced at Carmela and then quickly away, as if making eye contact might burn. Carmela sipped her coffee slowly, letting the silence do the work. She almost wanted to thank Jasmine because she inadvertently exposed the kind of man AB was when she had those pictures delivered. Yes, Jasmine was the culprit. That truth was discovered when James did an investigation with the front gate personnel. Soon after Jasmine, Ab came down the stairs, not in his usual custom suit, but in a plain polo and jeans, looking tired, older somehow. He tried to mask it with that same self-assured smile, but Carmela could see the strain in his eyes. "Good morning," he said, as though this were any other day. Carmela raised an eyebrow and said, "It will be better when you leave." He opened his mouth to respond, but the movers interrupted, carting out the last of his African artifacts, pieces that once decorated the walls and shelves she dusted weekly. She'd already replaced them with her own choices, bold modern art, rich fabrics, and gold accents that screamed, "This is my house now." When the final box was loaded, Ab lingered at the door, glancing around like he was memorizing the space. "You've done some redecorating," he said, his voice almost wistful. Carmela stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble. She stopped just close enough for him to smell her perfume, his favorite, the one he'd bought her for their second anniversary. "Yes," she said softly. "I got rid of everything that didn't belong here." It was subtle, but she saw the way the words hit him. Jasmine appeared at his side, sunglasses hiding her expression. "Ab, let's go," she murmured. Without another word, they stepped outside. Carmela followed to the doorway, leaning against the frame as the moving truck's engine rumbled to life. She watched them pull away, her posture relaxed, a faint smile playing on her lips. When the gate shut behind them, the silence was sweet. She walked back inside, shut the massive double doors, and turned the lock with a satisfying click. This was her home, her life, her freedom. The house felt different that evening, lighter, warmer, as if it had exhaled the last traces of AB and Jasmine along with the dust from the movers. Carmela walked barefoot through the halls, trailing her fingers along the smooth walls, stopping here and there to straighten a picture frame or adjust a vase. Every detail was hers now, her choices, her taste, her space. In the kitchen, she opened a bottle of vintage champagne she'd been saving for something special. She poured it into a crystal flute, then carried it to the grand balcony that overlooked the manicured back gardens. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in layers of gold and rose. She took a long, slow sip, letting the bubbles dance on her tongue. For the first time in months, she wasn't thinking about bills, lawyers, or betrayal. She was thinking about herself, what she wanted, what she could build, who she could become without the shadow of someone else's name. Her phone buzzed on the table beside her. A text from James just wanted to check in. "How's the Queen of the Castle doing tonight?" She smiled, typing back, reigning in peace. Setting the phone aside, she leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs and gazing out at the horizon. The air was warm, the champagne cold, and her heart steady. She thought about the day A.B. had told her, "Move in with your daughter until you get a place." She thought about the Waldorf, humiliation, the coupons, the nights of fear. And then she thought about this, her glass, her home, her power, and felt a deep, rich satisfaction settle into her bones. Tonight, she wouldn't toast to revenge. She'd toast to survival, to resilience, to the fact that she'd been knocked down, stripped bare, humiliated, and had risen again, more herself than ever. She raised her glass to the fading sun. "To me," she whispered, and she drank every last drop. A week after A.B. and Jasmine's move out, Carmela invited James over for dinner. She'd been thinking about it for days, not because she felt she owed him another thank you, but because she wanted to see him without the tension of court hanging over them. She cooked herself, which she hadn't done in years, grilled steak, garlic butter asparagus, and a lemon tart for dessert. When James arrived, he took one look at the dining room, candles flickering, the crystal glasses filled with chilled red wine, and gave her that slow smile that always seemed to settle her nerves. "Wow," he said, shrugging off his jacket. "I was expecting takeout. This feels special." "It is," Carmela replied. "You deserve it." They ate, laughed, and talked about everything but A.B. James told stories about his travels, his mother's stubborn streak, his failed attempts to learn French. Carmela found herself leaning in, captivated not by his words but by the way his eyes warmed when he looked at her. After dinner, they moved to the balcony with a second bottle of wine. The night air was soft, carrying the scent of jasmine from the garden below. "You know," James said, leaning back in his chair, "I've always admired you, Carmela, even when you thought you needed A.B. to give you a certain life. I knew you had it in you to create your own." She swirled the wine in her glass, smiling faintly. "You were right. I just wish I'd believed it sooner. I know you believe it now," James said. Their eyes met and held, the air between them charged but unhurried. Carmela felt a tug in her chest, not the dizzy rush she'd once mistaken for love with A.B., but something steadier, more grounded. She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're dangerous, James." "How so?" "Because you make me feel safe, and I'm starting to think that's better than anything else I've been chasing." James leaned forward, his voice low. "Maybe that's because safety isn't boring when it comes with someone who actually sees you." The moment stretched, unbroken except for the soft hum of the night. Carmela didn't lean in, and neither did he, but something had shifted, quietly, definitively. When he left later that night, he kissed her cheek, lingering just a second longer than usual. She closed the door behind him and leaned against it, smiling to herself. This wasn't the start of something reckless. It was the start of something real. 7 months later, the now, Jackson Mansion no longer felt like a reminder of the past. It felt like a statement of the future, which held Carmela's maiden name. Her accounting firm, Jackson Financial Group, had quickly become one of Atlanta's most sought-after boutique firms. High-profile clients filled her calendar, and every room in her sleek midtown office buzzed with activity. She was back in her element, running her own empire, making her own rules. This Saturday morning, sunlight poured into the kitchen as she set out fresh fruit and pastries on the marble island. James stood at the stove making breakfast like he'd been born to do it. "Are you sure you don't want me to help?" Carmela teased, sipping her coffee. "Queen of the castle doesn't do dishes, or eggs," James replied, flashing that easy smile she now knew was her favorite thing to wake up to. They'd taken their time. No whirlwind romance, no rushing to fill a void. Nearly a year of steady companionship, deep conversations, shared laughter, and mutual respect had built something solid. He didn't overshadow her, and she didn't shrink for him. They stood side by side, each powerful in their own right. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder, client meeting, 2 p.m. She silenced it. Work could wait. She walked over to James, slipping her arms around his waist. "You know," she murmured, "months ago, I didn't think I'd ever be happy in this house again. And now?" he asked, looking down at her. "Now it feels like home, my home, our home." James kissed her forehead. "That's because it is." As they sat down to eat, Carmela's gaze drifted out to the garden beyond the tall glass doors. The same garden she'd looked over the night she toasted to her survival. Only now, survival wasn't the goal. Thriving was. And she was.
For more stories like this, be sure to click the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. And don't forget to like and share.